2020 has been unlike any year that most of us have ever endured. And while the metaphorical shitstorm that has been this year has left its impact on everything from big businesses to small mum and pop enterprises, I've noticed something surprising when it comes to the automotive industry and new car sales. And that's this. While global new car sales have dramatically dropped this year, electric vehicle sales figures seem to suggest that electric cars are far more immune to the socio-economic car crash of COVID than the internal combustion engine car. Today, I'm going to explain why this is. From an increase in incentives in many countries around the world, through to increased market choice, and finally the sad, uncomfortable fact that people who are buying new electric cars are, how should I put this, less likely to be financially suffering right now. In making this video, I can't ignore the sales success that Tesla has had this year. It's continued to break its own delivery and sales records quarter after quarter. Despite suffering a drop in the second quarter due to COVID, it's just had what looks to be an amazing third quarter with Model 3 and Model Y production levels at their highest yet, and Tesla working hard to bring new factories online means that I don't think this is going to change anytime soon. As a market leader, Tesla is outselling all of its rivals in the US and is at or near the top of the sales chart in other countries. But for the purpose of this video, I'm going to look at so-called legacy automakers and ask why their electric and plug-in hybrid models are suddenly doing so well. After all, there's a global pandemic right now. People are losing their jobs and their health insurance in countries where medical care is not considered a basic human right. And the last thing that most people would be thinking of buying is a new car, right? The figures might say no. I don't have time to list every automaker, but let's look at some highlights. BMW just posted its third quarter and year-to-date figures. Combined as a group, its global sales figures are 12.5% lower than they were last year. And every single one of its sub-brands, including Mini, Rolls-Royce, and even BMW Motorrad, suffered significant drop in sales this year. All it is, except one, it's electrified vehicles, which I should note includes electric and plug-in hybrids. Despite COVID, sales for that segment within BMW are up 46.6% for the third quarter when compared to the third quarter last year, and up 20% year-to-date, year-on-year. Here's another example. In August, Renault sold more than twice the number of Zoe electric hatches than it did globally in August last year. The Zoe is getting on. It's fast approaching its 10th birthday, but a recent battery pack upgrade, which means more range, has really given it an edge against some of the competition, and as a result, sales are up. As to the rest of Renault's lineup, they majorly suffered a drop in sales in the same period, with only the recently upgraded Clio 5 and Captur 2 enjoying a sales boost. And that's essentially because those two models were launched at the tail end of last year. I could go on. Porsche's Taycan was the brand's strongest selling car for the first half of the year in the US, and Chevrolet's Bolt was one of a handful of GM models that enjoyed growth this year. The others, including the Cadillac XT6, the Chevy Blazer, and Chevy Silverado, were, like Renault, being reasonably new vehicles and thus enjoyed a spike. In order to explain these plug-in vehicles bucking the trend, our first port of call is Europe, where ever-tightening emissions requirements and a renewed push from governments means that electric vehicles are an economically sound choice. That, and the fact that some governments in Europe have noticed the improved air quality that came as a consequence of people physically distancing and working from home to protect themselves from COVID, and some of those governments decided they'd prefer it if the air stayed clean. Several European countries have recently either upped or introduced incentives for electric vehicles, at the same time increasing tax on fossil fuels. And with some nations and cities looking to ban internal combustion engine vehicles completely, either from their city centres or from sale in their countries, anyone looking to buy a new car is likely more aware of the incentives and the benefits of going electric than they once were. In the UK, for example, company car tax law means that right now it is a no-brainer to lease a company car that's electric, as you don't have to pay the benefit in kind tax that petrol or diesel cars that we use for a company car attract. The fact alone has been responsible for Model 3 sales skyrocketing of late. Next, let's look at the expanded choices in the electric vehicle marketplace. While it might not feel like that where you live, there are now more choices than there's ever been before, globally, when it comes to buying a new EV. What's more, many of the models on sale today that have been on sale for a while have actually dropped in price compared to their original prices when first launched. Or even better, they now have improved range and performance. These improvements not only give people more for their money, but means they're more likely to switch to electric than they once were. Finally, there is the elephant in the room, the fact that if you are looking to buy a brand new electric car, the chances are you're someone who has either got some spare cash kicking around, or you're someone who can pay a premium to make the switch and dump the pump. Don't get me wrong, electric cars are far more affordable today than they once were, but in many markets, electric cars are still sold at a premium over comparable gas vehicles, and they do take a while to recoup that extra sticker price because in some markets, gasoline is cheap. That is not the case in Europe, though, where fossil fuel taxes are high, and that means the return on investment for buying an EV is much better, and the break-even point happens a lot more quickly than it does in, say, the US. Whichever way you cut it, though, traditionally those who are buying electric cars are more likely to be those who have jobs that can be shifted to telecommuting. They're also more likely to be in higher paid jobs, and they're more likely to be in industries which are less affected by things like COVID. One recent study by UC Davis shows that in California, for example, 1/3 of all new electric and plug-in hybrid car purchases were made by someone earning more than $150,000 per year. And if you look at EV-only figures, well, 60% of all new sales were to people with an income of more than $100,000. When it comes to used electric cars, though, things get interesting, and I'm throwing this in just as a matter of course. Sales of Nissan's Leaf have recently skyrocketed, with the Leaf accounting for nearly 30% of all used EV sales over the last 12 months. The reason? Because they're now going for an average price of just over $13,000, and because electric cars tend to depreciate more quickly than most cars, Tesla being the exception, some smart buyers are realizing that they can afford to buy a used electric car when a similarly priced gas vehicle might be nothing but pain and suffering and breakdowns. So there you are, a mixture of circumstance, incentives, stereotypical buyer profiles, and people looking for a good deal. Electric vehicles are selling well right now when other cars aren't, and maybe that means we're about to see an unexpected positive to thank COVID for. That's it for today's video. As always, thanks to the folks on my right for being our $15 to $49 a month Patreon supporters. Special thanks to our $50 a month patrons, that's John Lyons, Raging Fellows and Jeffrey Songster, and our deepest gratitude to our $100 a month Patreon supporters. That's Marcel Ward, Reggie Watts, JP Fagerback and Sean Ueda. If you would like to join any of these fantastic people and become a Patreon for yourself, you can follow the link below, or you'll also find a link to make a donation through Ko-fi or Bitcoin. There's also a link to our free Discord server, so sign up and come and join in the chats. And don't forget to check out our new merch. You've got great t-shirts and other products available in our new Redbubble store. After the names are finished scrolling, you'll see a suggestion for a new video to watch from this channel, so please consider watching it if you haven't, and I will be back very soon. Thanks for joining me, and as always, keep evolving.